Opendoor is maybe the best retail play that is out there, okay? I will explain you why it's so important for retail investors, why retail investors create like a cult around Opendoor, and what the new CEO actually is doing. All about this here in this video.
Welcome to the game, I'm the wolf of Dubai.
If you don't know who I am, my name is Danny and I'm looking for stocks that can go up 10, 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50x. And you need to just find these beautiful moments where everything is like kind of cooled down, sentiment is low. In growth stocks, we have like a kind of bear market. And this is where you load up. This is where I decided to start to broadcast in my show about Opendoor. This is where I start to invest. You remember I talked about Opendoor when it was like 7 and 8. I said like, guys, I will wait until this will come down to 5. It went up to 10 almost, and then it went down to 5. And I finally said, okay, let's get into Opendoor because I think this is the biggest turnaround story on the stock market. And if you think like where I should get the money from, well, we are offering our X10 day trading group where we trade absolutely for you, okay? The buying, the selling is made by our professional day traders. You just have to switch on the software. You see how much we made you the day. You will see everything all happens in your account. You just have to switch it on and rest is done for you. If this is interesting and you want to get like between like 8 to 15% on average, that's over the last 4 years, then make sure to schedule a call with me, 15 minutes, and then we will see if we can help you as well. Now, let's dive into the clip that gives us a little bit of spice why retail investors are so important for Open and Open is so important for retail investors.
I'm just so curious from a cultural standpoint. So you're head of IR.
Yep.
But I've also heard everybody here has multiple hats. So what other roles do you have? And is that like, what is it like working here now under Kaz and that transition?
It's been pretty incredible. Yeah. So depending on the day, it's investor relations. I kind of came up doing capital markets, a little bit of corporate development, some finance and strategy. It really just kind of depends on the task for the day. I think what's been really remarkable and what Kaz has honestly like taught me is that we're all probably a little more capable than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. So when Kaz came in, he joined at the end of September and we did our Q3 earnings call just a couple weeks later. And, before Kaz, we had done things pretty much, by the books. We had the boring, just, dial in audio call. It was, shareholder letter with like very like basic script. Kaz came in and day one was like, guys, we're doing video live stream. I want to stream it on Robinhood, which we were the first company to actually stream our earnings on Robinhood other than Robinhood themselves. We're getting rid of the shareholder letter. We are going to do Say Q&A. And it was like one of those, like, I would have thought that we could do one of those every quarter and like that was like the most that we could do. But Kaz set a high target and said, hey, Judd, I know that, this sounds like a lot, but I know you guys can do it. And sure enough, we got to production. It wasn't without some long nights and some stress along the way, but we were able to get that done. And I think what was really important about that is kind of conveying to the people who are paying attention to our story and who are giving Opendoor a second chance that like if an IR team of one is able to pull off all of these changes in like 5 or 6 weeks, imagine what our engineers are doing in that time. Imagine what our kind of AI enabled and AI built like ops folks are able to build. So the idea is that like you're often more capable than you would think you are if you set like a quarterly cadence for yourself.
Why is it so important to innovate on IR in such a digital world now?
No, I mean, you and your audience, I feel like are a great testament. It's, retail is a word that, I feel like other companies like refer to with, a different like taste in their mouth. But for us, our mission is to change the way that like Americans like think about their houses. And I think that's such a core kind of just part of the American dream. And so with the advent of this summer and the, kind of heightened attention that the business got, I think that us being able to show that we can meet the narrative where it is rather than asking the narrative to kind of come to us on these boring, more institutional, more kind of classic like Wall Street forums, and really feeling like people have a say in how management speaks and kind of what kind of questions we answer. And so I think for us, it's really about just continuing to drive the transparency and acknowledge that this second birth came on the back of people believing in us. And so meeting those believers where they are rather than forcing them into old Wall Street corners.
What's the hardest challenge you face?
Keeping up with Kaz, honestly. The pace is pretty incredible. And I think, like I said, he kind of pushes each of us to expand what we think we could do, both in terms of the quality of the materials and, just the different hats. Like I was saying, I used to have a few hats. I picked up more with Kaz joining, which is normally the opposite when a company grows like this. And I think just remembering, again, how important that mission is and like using that as kind of the fuel to continue to get the things done that you can. So yeah, it's he sets a fun pace.
So I feel like they did something this earnings call which was so brilliant, okay? This was one of the most watched earnings call from a company ever, okay? 55,000 people tuned into the live stream. And this is where innovation comes. They looked like, okay, what is Robinhood doing? Robinhood came out with this concept. Also, I think Palantir is doing it as well, where they have like live stream videos, okay, of the earnings, which is fantastic because that's like much more personal. That's some kind of call that I barely can understand because the quality is so. If you ever was on an earnings call of Tesla or Apple, like the quality is like insane for 2026, right? But I believe that what this person at Opendoor says, he's basically the retail, not retail, but investor relation, but also retail investor relation at Open. And he says like, it's hard to keep up with the CEO. This is what you want to hear. You don't want to have like a lean back CEO that just like counts his money. You want like that goes like, go, right? We need to do this. We need to do that. Like, this is great to hear. This is where people in the company work 6-7 days a week, 10, 12 hours nonstop. This is what you want for a company that is about to turn around tremendously, okay? And last but not least is the digital retail revolution. So I believe that one of the biggest retail investor markets was created in 2020 when everything went down, everybody sat at home, everybody gets a Robinhood account and they start to buying things, okay? And every now and then you get like a cult around the company. It happened with Tesla, it happened with Palantir, now it's happening with Opendoor. And this is so important because you have then retail investors that not only buy the shares, they hold it for as long as possible. They motivate each other to stay in the stock. They share stories, they share theses. It's just like this beautiful thing where I really like the retail investor community, even when it's hard on myself, right? If a stock that I talk about goes down, like, they are like bad mood and, you don't know anything and so on. But I went through this kind of cycle so many times that I don't bother. I just like super happy when my subscribers buy houses or apartments, even because they watch my free videos. And if you want to get even closer to me, and check out x10daytrading.com because we are trading for you. Limited spaces every single month before we raising our joining fee again. And make sure to schedule a call with me. And I see you obviously tomorrow for a brand new video because the grass is greener always on the other side.